Hello and welcome to the Creators Podcast, a spin-off of the Fedcast created by GameFed. I am your host, Jack O'Brien, and today we have someone who has had, to put it very briefly, a interesting career so far. He was born in Blacktown, somehow found his way all the way up in the northern reaches of Queensland. He studied health science. He was a serial vlogger at one point when it was cool to do so. And now he has a successful and becoming more successful by the day video game music show. Welcome, Middo. How are you, sir?
Hello. That was very kind of you.
So Middo, basically, you and I know each other from way back, but let's talk as if I know nothing about you. So you said, I did mention that you were born in Blacktown. So how long were you in New South Wales for?
Really not long, like 6 months, I think. And then we moved up.
Excellent. Okay. So I know for a fact that you've had a passion for entertaining people in one form or another for a long time, but that didn't quite show in your formal education. Was that a conflicting thing that happened to you? Because you, as I mentioned, you said you studied health science, but arguably what's more important to you these days is your show, GameScore Fanfare. Was it a conflicting issue at times, figuring out what you wanted to do versus what you felt like you should?
It's interesting that you say entertaining, because I've never really seen it as an entertainment sort of thing. It's always just been a creative expression thing.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, so it's all just been more about like making something and being fulfilled in that sort of way, because the science, I feel like as a kid, I was very creative, but I kind of got distracted along the way with like science stuff, because my mother was, she wanted to be a doctor, but she never got to have that experience. And when I was about 12 or something, I was like, you know, Mum, I'm going to live that dream of yours. So it was kind of one of those, you know, parents' dreams, like instilling into their children. And I loved the science and it was really important to me and everything. But I think I slowly began to realize that I just wasn't very good at it. And I wasn't feeling like, as I went through my degree, like I failed horribly at my degree, but I saw it through in the end, and I actually like finished it in the end. But then when I got a job in that sort of career, I was like, man, this just it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like me. I'm not enjoying myself. I always had kept sort of video blogging as a hobby. And that was kind of my creative output in that during those years, and writing and that sort of stuff. And so eventually I just decided, I was like, I've got too many hobbies. This is what gives me fulfillment, and I kind of just want to move into that as a career. And that was about a year ago.
And so, as you did mention, you did video blogging and the like before that. Can you tell us about those related adventures? Like, what did you blog about? What was your content like at the time?
Look, it was awful. So I was like, it was just something that I did when I was like 16 years old. I started doing it just because my friend was doing it. One of my best friends, probably my best friend at the time, he started doing it, and I was like, that's cool. I do everything that you do, so I'm going to start video blogging. And so yeah, I just started doing it then, and kind of fell in with the community that was forming around there, because this was the early days of YouTube, you know, 2006, 2007. So the community was small there, but very closely, tightly knit. And so it was people like the Vlog Brothers, who were kind of the big channels at the time, big communities of YouTube. And I kind of just found myself in that little community. And
we were known as the Nerd Fighters. And
the Nerd Fighters,
now the
exactly,
Facebook page is a barren wasteland.
But I think that might have been how we met each other. It's an incredible community, and they're still doing a lot of like really great stuff. I really love that community. I wouldn't say I've kind of, I guess, drifted away from that community, but I just kind of found myself in a new community, I guess, of like video essayists.
So that is the show, GameScore Fanfare. Why don't you give us the elevator pitch for what that show is for the uninitiated?
Okay. So GameScore Fanfare is basically a show on YouTube that celebrates video game music. So it kind of sits at the intersection of like games and gameplay and music and story, and how all those things kind of like link together in a unique way that only games can do.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's an incredibly important part, I think, of your content. The fact that you don't just talk about how interesting the music is. You know, any music blog can do that, but specifically how it connects to the medium. My next question is, you went from arguably quite a different medium in which, and I participated in it too in some regards, so I can talk from a personal point of view. You're kind of, at least I felt obligated to share a lot of yourself personally to a show where you are almost like a David Attenborough film or a documentary of some kind, where you're, you know, pointing out the mystical nature of the Arpeggio and whatnot, and it doesn't really matter who you are. Would you agree with that sentiment? Is that and if so, is that a jump you embraced? Has it been fulfilling, kind of just not being as obligated to share so much of yourself and still create?
Most certainly. I think one of the biggest problems I had when video blogging, which was something that I did very rarely, you know, coming into my uni years and that sort of stuff, you know, once a year or something, I would make some videos. But the biggest problem was that I was just so sick of talking about myself. Like, I don't think I've got a very interesting life. I don't think I can like spin my own stories in very interesting ways. I just didn't want to do that anymore. And so, yeah, very slowly I came to the realization that I've got interests and I've got cool opinions on interests, I guess. And something that was quite liberating actually is the fact that I don't have to appear on camera. Like, I'm fine appearing on camera, but I wanted to kind of go into the background and make the thing not about me, but about what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you created GameScore Fanfare, you said, a year ago. Was that a process that took a long time to decide this is what you wanted to do, or did you jump right in, or was it a slow, gradual process? Tell me the inception of the show.
So it did take a time. I take my time with anything. I come across this nice analogy where it's like there's two types of... It was in the context of writers, the two types of writers. You know, there's the type who are architects who like have to plan out every little thing and before they even, you know, put pen to paper. And then there's the gardeners who just like jump right in and just let it grow and see what happens. I'm the first. I'm an architect. Basically, it was about a year ago. I launched in March of this year, which was about just under 9 months ago. So I spent a good like 3 months trying to think of like, you know, the unique angle that I wanted it to be, and getting like a bunch of video ideas kind of in at least half done so that I could have some sort of, you know, just some sort of season 1, I guess. And so I could have a consistent release schedule. Because I have a very bad habit of starting things and then getting 2 episodes deep and then abandoning it.
Yeah, I understand that. I do.
Yeah. So I think every creator can.
Yeah, we've all had our moments.
But yeah, basically I kind of wanted to move from, you know, sciencey sort of stuff into online video stuff. And it wasn't that like, oh, I want to make this show and I want it to like blow up and make a living off talking about music and games. This was just an excuse to kind of learn the ropes of Premiere and that sort of stuff in a proper sort of way, and push myself in that regard. And writing as well. The writing is really important to me.
And so with the show, you're 9 months in, which is a relatively short time in a YouTube career, but you've
my little baby.
Yeah, it is your little baby, absolutely. Yeah, it's not even 1 year old yet.
Just born.
So basically we've been talking so far about how you came to the decision to create games called Fanfare, but I want to know what exactly inspired you to do it, because taking such a different direction from what you did before in your videos, as well as what you were studying at the time, doesn't come out of nowhere, no? What inspired you to do it beyond your own dissatisfaction? Like, were there channels that popped out at you and gone, I can do that?
There's been a couple of inspirations, like just in the sort of like format, I guess. Like the format wasn't really something that I was aware of, but it was things like mainly the big inspiration for me was Mark Brown.
Yes, Game Maker's Toolkit, Mark Brown.
Game Maker's Toolkit, yeah. Excellent channel, which just kind of dissects the like the gameplay and design, game design. He dissects game design. That kind of inspired me because this guy's not like he's not a game dev himself. He comes from like a journalistic sort of background, but he speaks with such authority on the topic. But he just does his research. And he just, plays a lot of games and thinks about them in a critical way, and then puts a lot of time and effort into the videos to make them interesting and entertaining and not condescending. And that was another big thing for me, was that like there's so much content out there which is just like, crapping over these bad games or movies or whatever.
You're right. The negativity in critique analysis is very, very big.
I really prefer the like the happy sort of things that make you fall in love more with the things you love. So another big inspiration for me was movies with Mikey, who just has like this infectious love of movies. And if you don't know it, it's the guy who wrote for Borderlands.
I did not know that. How about that?
Yeah.
So you were inspired by those, but you didn't decide on games specifically. You didn't decide on the narrative or the design. You decided on a very specific part of video games. Why the music?
Games and music have been like my two biggest sort of like loves, like separated from each other. They kind of found this. They kind of started in the same sort of area. It was kind of Final Fantasy VIII that I fell in love with the game, and I fell in love with the music of the game as well. And so they diverged into two separate paths that kind of formed these two passions of mine. And game music itself is something that I really like. It's not something that I'm like super into. I guess I am now, but it's not like I was like, I know everything about game music and I'm going to share it with people. That's not the case. It was just these like,
You're learning
sort
as
of,
you go.
Yeah, I'm absolutely learning as I'm going. But it was more just like my two sort of hobbies and my third hobby of online video kind of coalescing into this one sort of thing that I'm like, yeah, I guess I could like speak about that. I've got some interesting thoughts about a couple of games and the way that it uses music. And like, I'm also very interested in story.
But the way you talk about music in your videos shows either like you really did your research at the time, or that you've actually got a history with music. Could you elaborate on that?
It's all research. I know nothing.
Oh, that's interesting. How about that? Okay.
Yeah, I think I have if I'm honest, I think my best sort of like angle on it, or my best sort of understanding of music is that I feel like deeply emotional about it, and I think if I think about it, I can kind of in a way get across what that sort of emotion is and what the emotion is or what the music is trying to get at and do, and so, but I don't have any sort of like music training. I'm not even a musician. I'm not a composer. I'm not a music student. I'm not a game dev. I'm none of those things. I'm just a guy who really likes the stuff.
Yeah, well, in that case, I legitimately had no idea that was the case.
The stuff is out there if you just like do the research. I just do a lot of like reading of interviews and listening to people who know more about it. Like, I'm really inspired by people like 8-Bit Music Theory, who are just insane with their like level of knowledge that they know about music theory and that sort of stuff. And that gives me a good sort of understanding of what the music can do and what it does. And I kind of constantly refer back to them. I like, occasionally ask these people questions if I'm like, have I got this right?
So you've got a bit of a community going with these other music specific creators, or creators in general, or
not particularly. I just kind of send them messages and they're very lovely people and respond.
I'd call that a community.
I guess so.
Like eventually, and I'm sure that it might have happened already, but if not, eventually I'm sure someone's going to come to you and ask you a question about what works where. Do you think you have a favorite episode so far, for whatever reason? It can be the reaction it got, or the enjoyment you had making it, or the topic itself.
It's a hard question because I hate them all, but I love them at the same time.
A true creator right here, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm actually quite proud of most, if not all, of the videos that I've made on that channel, because I put a lot of effort into them. But at the same time, they can all be better. They all have their problems. I think, in general, the best script I wrote was for Journey.
Yes, and that's what I was going to elaborate into next, because that arguably was one of the ones that kind of put your foot in the door, for lack of a better term. The reaction was so positive, and that people really seemed to respond and were sharing, and that was it was well worth the time spent watching it. So it was one of those rare instances where people were blowing up something on the internet, and it was actually worth your time. And does that make sense?
Yeah. I've kind of the response to that video was incredible. I've had multiple people tell me that they cried from it, and I'm just like, holy moly.
Yeah. You see what I mean?
That's insane.
Yeah.
And I've had people be like, I've never played this game, but I'm going to. And I've had people be like, I've played this game 100 times and I learned something new. And then I had Austin Wintory just being like, this is the best.
I was waiting for you to drop that bombshell.
Oh.
So Austin Wintory, the composer of Journey, happens to just retweet, share on his personal and professional pages. I think this video is awesome. That must have been like Christmas.
It still is Christmas to me. It's like a year-long Christmas. Yeah, it was like the most flattering thing. He was really lovely about it. I'm completely undeserving because I just basically copied a bunch of his interviews, and put my own little spin on it. He was really lovely about it, and that kind of it puts me on a little bit of high thinking that like it actually like kind of brought him a little bit of joy, which was nice. So
all right, so that's your favorite episode in terms of what you wrote. What are your plans for the future?
Good question. I mean, I want to grow the channel. I want to continue making videos on that. I've got some ideas for some other videos, some like really big sort of videos, and I'm way too ambitious about, and I probably
Would
can't
it be
pull
spoiling
off.
the surprise if you gave us a hint?
I guess I can talk about a little bit. I just want to do like, I want to do one that's like, or maybe a series of videos where it's like looking at a series in general. I'd like to do one about the Yoshi music actually, because Yoshi's Island is like this phenomenal soundtrack, and ever since then it's kind of gone downhill, and I want to look at why that was, specifically in terms of the quality of music.
Right.
It's just, you listen to Yoshi's New Island, and man, there are some bad music choices on that thing. It just sounds awful. Like I think they've tried to make it sound awful. It's bad, but like I can kind of see the angle that they were going for, so it'd be good to dissect why it doesn't work.
Are you going
which
to
would
be
be a bit
talking
different for the channel
specifically about
because
Yoshi's Island and the SNES games, or all of the Yoshi games thus since then?
it'd be good to look through because
Because I'll tell you, I played Yoshi's
where
Woolly
things went wrong.
World, and boy oh boy did they not try.
with the music specifically, or
Yeah, the music specifically. Like, it's literally just a loop track of like someone barely whistling.
yeah,
Like, oh
it's-
man.
Yoshi's Woolly World is an interesting one. I haven't played it, but I've been
I really
listening to the
enjoy it
soundtrack.
for like just kind of calming zen, like there's no real consequences, but like it's, you know, a fun little game to play on the 3DS. But Lord Almighty, that soundtrack, that's not even, can you call it a soundtrack? It's like a YouTube video, like using the same track again and again for,
Yeah,
you know, minimum of
that's-
5 hours.
That's actually like kind of the idea that I had from listening to Yoshi's Woolly World, is that, I mean, there's a lot of music on it and there's some actually like really good tracks on it. But a lot of it just seems very like, not background music, but like, you know, copyright free music. Like, royalty-free music is like, it kind of just sounds like they had a soundtrack sitting in the Nintendo archives somewhere and were like, all right, Yoshi needs a soundtrack. Let's just throw it there. So it's kind of like nondescript. But like, there's some good tracks on it. There's some actually good music on it, but
clearly I haven't gotten there yet.
Feel like Yoshi. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I'm very excited for that. So we've got some time. So let's go into a little mini game. Think about what your favorite video game soundtrack, whatever that is, and paint a picture for how it affected you and why it still affects you to this day and why it's your favorite. Go free.
Oh my goodness, this is like the question of all questions, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's all opinion stuff, so no one's going to call you out on it. No one's going to be like, hey, man, because, well, they might, but they're dicks.
So, as I said earlier, like, my kind of love of both games and music formed around Final Fantasy VIII, which is when I was like, I think I was about 9 years old. I got a demo disc on PC, of all things. And I just kind of fell in love with this game, and my neighbor happened to have it on PlayStation, so I borrowed it from him. And instantly fell in love with this like huge world, and the music by Nobu Uematsu is just incredible. Like that game is kind of considered by most people to be one of the worst mainline Final Fantasy games, but consistently people are being like, but the music in that game is just incredible. It's often cited as, the best part of the game, and so I don't really know how like it made me feel when I was that age. That was a long time ago, but I guess it
must have stayed with you in some regard. So
absolutely, I remember.
Was the plot melancholy? Was it happy?
It's basically Final Fantasy VIII is a romance story. It's as close as we kind of get to a romance game, and it's this brooding main character Squall, who he's like a part of this military school. They're called Gardens, and he goes on this this mission basically, and teams up with these not terrorists, but like a resistance group, and meets this girl there, and turns out that she's part of this line of sorceresses and that sort of stuff. And basically, they fall in love, and his character is kind of changed through that. He goes from being distant and brooding and not really caring about anyone else. And he finds sort of meaning through that. He understands one other person in this world, and that kind of extends to other people. And so the music, I guess, they have this lovely theme called Eyes on Me. It's like a pop song. And it goes for them, but it also goes for their parents. Like two of their parents were like in love with each other, like back in the day. And it was originally their song, and then it gets moved to their song. And I thought that was really interesting. But in general, I guess the music is like very militaristic. It's either militaristic or it's like, love songs. And I don't know, I just remember getting my first PC and some illegal downloading website apps like Kazaa. And the music that I download would be like from Final Fantasy VIII. And I remember having like 100 tracks on my computer being like, whoa, I've got like this massive library of songs. It's like 100 tracks. But they're all Final Fantasy music, mainly 8. And so it obviously like hit me in some sort of way that I didn't really understand at the time.
Okay. So in a way, you're kind of objectively appreciating the music separately from the game, almost, from the way you're telling me this story.
Yeah, it's interesting because I haven't played that game in at least 10 years. And actually on my Patreon, as one of the goals for like reaching a certain amount,
what's the link of that Patreon there, Mido?
Oh, yeah, just a little, like, plug
there. Yeah, just subtly put it in on his Patreon, patreon.com/
Games called Fanfare. So, yeah, on my Patreon, I've just got, like, a goal being, like, if I reach this amount, I'll make a video on Final Fantasy VIII. But I haven't played it in, like, 10 years, and I just don't even know how I'm going to begin to start talking about this game that, like, means so much to me. Like, I know, like,
and also
what
the fact
it
you might
means to
have
me,
to
but I
remove
don't.
your nostalgia goggles there. That's That was always a worry
Exactly,
for
yeah.
me when I was like playing older games and I had the revenue to do so. Like, like, oh, this is a little bit more expensive, but I'll pick this up. And
Yeah, I feel that.
yeah, it's a risk, because you just in general have better experiences. But well, not better, but like more streamlined, better, more intuitive, I guess is the best word for it. Like more intuitive to what you want as a gamer. And then you go back and then odd design choices, because it might have been the first time a choice like that had been made, like not being able to walk diagonally. Like, come on, for God's sake.
Having like tank controls or something. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like for Final Fantasy or Final Fantasy games in general, it's like those games are long. I put, hundreds of hours into that game alone because I played it multiple times. I don't have the time to do that nowadays.
Yeah, maybe if you live streamed it, like you can kind of, like...
I was thinking about that.
Yeah, I mean, like, at least that way, like, you're kind of working at the same time you're working on something else. So that way you don't feel guilty. Thank you for your story. We're going to play one final game before we wrap up. This is called Lightning Round, in which, in regards to soundtracks, you just think of the first word that comes to mind when I throw this series out at you. Ready?
All right.
Star
I'm
Fox.
Ready.
Faster, Minnow.
This is not lightning, is it? I'm more of the thunder that comes way after.
Perfect.
I don't even know that. Like, I don't know too much of Star Fox music. I haven't really listened to it. That's a bad one to start with.
You never played Star Fox?
No. I never had a Nintendo 64 to begin with, or a Super Nintendo.
Well, you can buy the SNES Classic and enjoy yourself. That's definitely a thing I'd love to see an episode on, because kick ass.
All right.
Okay, all right. Let's keep going. You can say pass.
Yeah.
Just like if you get stuck again like that. Right? Final Fantasy.
Oh, that's not easier, man.
Oh, come on. You're a fan of that.
I know, but that's because it's so big and so important to me. I can't just distill it into one word, man.
Important.
It's so different. Important. That is definitely, yes, important. I am rubbish at lightning rounds.
Yeah, no, worst lightning round ever, but that's all right. We'll get better. Metroid.
Oh, creepy, atmospheric, just beautiful. Oh my goodness, Kenji Yamamoto.
Abzu.
Abzu, lovely. Oh my goodness, that just so beautiful.
BioShock.
Oh, Jolly.
Zelda. Hang on, I'll get more specific. Zelda Ocarina of Time.
Ocarina of Time. Heroic. And Spanish flamenco.
Yeah. Mario.
Gerudo Valley.
Super Mario Brothers.
Super Mario Brothers. The first that comes to mind is Waltzy, because I made the underwater video.
Dead Space.
Dead Space. Just noise, isn't it? It's just
in a way, yeah.
noise.
Yeah, big, or Hans Zimmer kind of.
Dissonant.
Very good. That's totally fine.
Dissonant is my word.
No, absolutely. I'm sticking with that. Well, Minnow, thank you very much for appearing on the show. We have been friends, I think, goodness me, maybe almost 10 years at this point.
Wow, is it that long? When did we go see the Mountain Goats?
Yeah.
And that was like kind of towards the beginning of our friendship, wasn't it?
That's true. Yeah, it was after I'd gone to your 21st. So that's
yes.
That's an anecdote for you guys.
The fact that you came to my 21st means that we'd probably been friends for a while at that point.
Yes, because I am 26 now. Well, I mean, like probably closer to 7 years now that I actually do the math, but 10 years sounds more impressive. But it has been a continued pleasure watching you grow and change and continue being the pleasant person that you are, even though you're terrible at lightning rounds.
I just never knew that about myself until now.
Yeah. Well, now you know. We can practice together. We'll do lightning round weights.
Look, I've never been good on the spot.
No, that's all good.
I'm just gonna... Thunder rounds are my thing.
No, of course. That's why you're a video essayist, because you can take your time and have a calm environment. It takes
me weeks.
I just throw stuff at the wall, man. I just see what happens. Well, thank you again very much, Minnow, and I look forward to talking to you directly after this.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I really enjoyed this.
No worries. Thank you for appearing, and we will be back when I next have a guest on. Thank you for listening to the Creators Podcast, a spin-off of the Fedcast, a creation of GameFed. My name is Jack O'Brien. This has been Middo, creator of GameScore Fanfare. Is there anything you want to plug, good sir?
Patreon.com/GameScoreFanfare.
Yes, very good. Give him the monies so that he can create a Star Fox episode. Screw Final Fantasy. I want a Star Fox episode. Play Star Fox. Okay. Thank you very much, Middo.
Anything you say, Jack.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.